And I'm joined now from Westminster by the SNP's defence spokesman, Angus Robertson. Thank you for coming in, Mr Robertson. Do you accept that even discussing this policy will be seen as a fundamental betrayal by significant numbers of SNP supporters and also those who didn't support the SNP but went to you because they thought you had an absolutely unequivocal policy on non-nuclear?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, and I'm really looking forward to the debate that we'll be having in the run-up to the SNP conference. And it's there that delegates from across the party, our branches, our constituency associations, will decide on this defence policy. And I think, to be fair, I know you're concentrating on an aspect of the policy update, but it's a very detailed policy proposal, and it goes through the reasons why we should be able to make defence, security and foreign affairs decisions in Scotland. It takes us through the geostrategic challenges that we face in Northern Europe, together with our regional neighbours. Those would be the likes of Norway, Denmark, Iceland, and then goes on to discuss the roles, the capability gaps that we currently have, and what that will mean in terms of the defence infrastructure that we'll need in Scotland. I think it's important to understand that the issue of treaty relationships with our neighbours and friends is a part of the update, and I think it's a very welcome debate to be had, because in recent years, when I've been travelling around our neighbours to understand the kind of relationship that they might want to have with an independent Scotland, it has become obvious that working together through treaty organisations is absolutely key for them, and we want to be good neighbours and allies after independence.
In fact, Mr Robertson, you've done this because you know there's a public perception that there's a huge gap in your defence policy. I mean, you're more or less conceding that in what you say here.
Well, the proposal's been made because, having spoken to people within the SNP, and there's been very wide-ranging review, having spoken to external experts and having travelled around our neighbouring countries, it's clear that 10 years on from the last update in policy, there are a whole series of areas that do need updating. For example, we face unprecedented challenges through cyber terrorism and cyber threats.
Right, let's just focus, we don't have a lot of time, let's just focus on NATO. You've talked about all these other things. Do you not accept that this NATO discussion, whether or not the SNP are in NATO after independence on whatever terms, is a massive, massive policy discussion to have? And it seems like not only a U-turn, but actually a significant betrayal that you would even discuss it. Do you accept that?
Goodness me, it's a betrayal to have a debate in a political party. I don't think so. I'm very much looking...
How flexible are your principles then? If NATO say, no, you cannot stay in unless you keep Trident, what do you say to that?
I think you misunderstand the way that NATO works. Nuclear weapons being stationed in another country is a matter of bilateral arrangements between the two countries concerned. It doesn't involve NATO at all, and in this case that would be the relationship between Scotland and the rest of the United Kingdom. It's not a matter for NATO at all. And in fact, if we look at the recent history of those few countries that do host tactical nuclear weapons, those would be from the United States. In recent years, they have been withdrawn both from Canada and from Greece. I think there's a misunderstanding on what's on the table here. What is being proposed is that Scotland, after independence, and the resolution that I'm proposing, would work together with neighbours, friends and allies on the basis of an agreement that we would not have nuclear weapons in Scotland. There's a consensus. A majority of people in Scotland do not want Trident in Scotland. Neither do I, neither does the SNP. We're in the fortunate position that we have the opportunity to work closely with friends, neighbours and allies, and at the same time get rid of nuclear weapons and have the appropriate conventional defence that we need in Scotland. That's the beauty of being able to make defence decisions in Scotland. That's why we need independence. That's why we need to be able to set our own defence agenda.
Briefly, if you don't mind, Mr. Robertson, would it be the case then, if you did get rid of Trident, that you would actually allow nuclear-armed vessels from other NATO members into Scottish territorial waters?
I think what's instructive is having a look at the policy of our closest northern European neighbour that is in NATO but does not have nuclear weapons in its country, and that is Norway. Norway has expressly made it understood that it does not train its forces in nuclear weapons, will not station nuclear weapons in its country, does not want to be part of nuclear weapons arrangements. Neither does Scotland. But we are prepared to work with neighbours and allies, one for all for one. That is what NATO is supposed to be about, and that is for us and for other NATO members primarily about conventional defence.
Okay.
Cooperating, operating together, watching one another's backs. That's what our neighbours want. I think we want to get rid of Trident from Scotland, but we do want to work together with our neighbours and friends.
Angus Robertson, thank you very much indeed. Thank you.